This is the video demonstration on percentage of completion. In this video, I'm going to work the solution to example number 5. This example involves the Kenny Construction Company. They've been contracted to construct a bridge for $5 million at an estimated cost of $4 million. The contract period begins January 1st, 2012 and ends on December 31st, 2014, and the following data pertains to the project. So it's essentially a 3-year project, 2012, 13, and 14. Cost to date, by the end of the first year they've spent $1 million. By the end of the second year they've spent $3.5 million. By the end of the fourth year or third year they've spent $4.5 million. Notice by the end of the third year they actually spent a little more than they originally planned, and usually that does happen on these types of projects. And then cost to complete, at the end of the first year they thought at that point they only had $3 million left to go. At the end of 2013, at that point they thought they had about $1 million left, and then at the end of 2014 they were finished, so they didn't think they had anything left to spend. So that's pretty standard information whenever you have a lengthy multi-year construction project like that. So under the requirements, number 1, we have to figure out the percentage of completion for every year. And then number 2, we have to figure out the amount of revenue and the amount of gross profit that could be recognized each year. In order to do this, we're going to utilize a criteria, and I've already set this up in Excel, but of course you could always set this up very easily. We're going to have a 3-column format, 1 column for each of the 3 years involved, 2012, 2013, and 2014. We're going to have the contract price. We're going to deduct the estimated cost. We will have cost to date, cost left to complete, total cost, and finally gross profit. Then once we get all that, we'll have a percent complete, and then we'll have an area for the revenue and an area for the gross profit. We're not going to have a whole lot of calculations on this particular example, but we are going to have a lot of information that we will have to plug in, and we'll have to do a fair amount of looking for that information. So the very first thing I want to plug in there is the contract price. Now, it said in the example we've been contracted, and the original price that we were contracted to deliver this on is based on $5 million. So that's the total amount that they're going to pay us. So the good news is that's not going to change. So across the board, for all 3 years, the contracted price is actually going to be $5 million. So that is the same for all 3 years, no difference there. Then it says less the estimated cost. Well, that's going to be based upon the costs up until that point. So what about cost to date? They provided me with the cost to date information. Cost to date, $1 million, 3.5, 4.5. So it's going to be $1 million, 3.5 million, and 4.5 million. So that's just information that was given to me in the problem. And then cost left to complete, 3 million, 1 million, and 0. So 3 million in the first year, 1 million in the second year, and 0. So that just plugs in the information that we were provided. Now, when it says total cost is going to be a function of the money that was spent to date and the money left that they feel it will take to complete the project. So in year 1, if they've already spent to date $1 million and they feel it's going to take an additional $3 million to finish the project, at that point the total cost was $4 million. Now in the second year, if they had already spent 3.5 and they felt that it would require another $1 million to complete, that adds up to $4.5 million. And then of course in year 3 they're finished and they have nothing left to spend, so $4.5 million. So the total cost, like I said, just a function of everything spent to date plus the cost that they feel would be left to complete. Now the gross profit, that's going to be the contracted price minus the total cost. So in year 1, They thought they're going to receive $5 million and that it would only cost them $4 million. So they felt in year one they were going to make a profit of $1 million. But notice how it changed by the second year. They're still going to receive $5 million, but now the costs have gone up. Now they think the total cost is $4.5 million, so they think they're only going to make $500,000. And the same is still true in year three. So in that case, it is just the $5 million minus the 4.5. So in other words, they thought they were going to make a profit of $1 million, but by the second year they realized that because of additional costs, really they're only going to make a profit of $500,000. So that completes that first initial area. And I need that information. I'm going to use a lot of information from that to complete the remaining parts of the problem. Now down here, I want to figure out the percent complete. There's actually a formula for that. And the formula for percent complete is in the textbook, and it's also in the video lecture that I did on percentage of completion. And the formula is the cost to date divided by total cost. So cost to date divided by total cost. And I would repeat that for all 3 years. Cost to date divided by total cost. And again, cost to date divided by total cost. So that's a decimal answer that I then convert into a percentage. And clearly the way this is set up then is by the end of year one, they were 25% complete. By the end of year two, they were 78% of the way there. And by the end of year three, they were 100% complete on the project. So those three percentages are very important, very key percentages that I'm going to have to use on parts 2 and 3, but that does complete part 1. That does give me the percent complete for each year, 25, 78, and 100. So now I'm ready to move on to part 2, and I'm going to work on the revenue and the gross profit. So in year 1, what is my total revenue? Well, the total contracted price, $5 million. What's the percent? Well, at the end of that year, they were 25% complete. So what is 25% of 5 million? 1,250,000. So I can recognize in year 1, $1,250,000 of the revenue because I'm 25% of the way there. Then in year 2, again, contracted price, $5 million. Now in this year, it's a different percentage. It's about 78%. So 78% of that revenue is $3.9 million. But I already acknowledged $1,250,000 in the first year, so I want to deduct that. So that means in year 2, I can recognize $2,650,000. Then in year 3, again, the total contract price, $5 million. I'm 100% complete. Of course, 100% of $5 million is $5 million. I've already recognized $1,250,000. I've already recognized $2,650,000. So what can I recognize in year 3? $1,100,000. So that's the way that works. Now, a good way to go back and double check this, go back and add up your final answer for all 3 years. See, in the 3 years, we're going to have $1,250,000 in the first year, $2,650,000 the next year, 1.1 the next year. What does that all add up to? That adds up to $5 million, which is the total revenue. So it's good to do that just as a way to double check and make sure that you've actually calculated your revenue properly. But that's the proper way to do the revenue. Now we're also going to do the same thing for the gross profit. Now the gross profit, what's our total revenue? In year 1, $1,250,000. That's how much we're going to recognize in year one. What was our cost in year one? We'll go up here and look at our cost. Right here it is. Cost to date, $1 million. So if our cost in year one is $1 million and our revenue is $1,250,000, how much are we going to recognize for profit? $250,000 in year one. Then we get to year two. What is our revenue in year two? Right here it is, $3.9 million. Because it's just the 78%, the $3.9 million. Now, of that $3.9 million, what was our cost? Go up here and look at cost. Cost to date, $3.5 million. So that's going to be $3.5 million. But we have something else. In addition to that $3.5 million, we have already recognized $250,000. So that $250,000, see, we can't necessarily recognize that. We've already done that part. So I want to deduct both of those, and I can recognize $150,000 in that year. Then I get over here to year three. At this point, total revenue, $5 million. What are my costs to date? The $4.5 million. But I've already recognized how much? I've already recognized $250,000 and $150,000. So that minus each one of these amounts will show me how much I can recognize in that year. Now again, to check this, I'm going to recognize $250 the first year, $150 the next year, and $100 the next year. That's $500,000. Is that my total amount of gross profit? Right there's my gross profit, $500,000. So that's a way to double check and make sure that we calculated the profit properly. So that completes the example on percentage of completion.